Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada will do whatever it takes to protect Canadian workers, businesses, farmers and families. That pledge came today as he met with Canada's premiers in Charlottetown, with the clock ticking toward yet another round of U.S. tariffs set to take effect on August 19th. Those tariffs of 50% would apply to more than 500 categories of products, with no exemption for goods that comply with the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has accused Canada of dragging its feet on reviewing CUSMA, and he's now warning talks could slip into next year, prolonging uncertainty on both sides of the border. So, how should Canada respond to this latest tariff threat, and is there a realistic path to a deal before August 19th? With us now from the First Minister's meeting in Charlottetown, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. Premier Smith, thanks so much for making time for this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So we've heard a lot this week about Team Canada, the importance of premiers being united behind the Prime Minister and his negotiating team. You've now all had your meeting with the Prime Minister. What is Ottawa's plan to respond to this latest threat? I understand you can't sketch out the entire strategy, but how would you sketch out the rough lines of it?
Well, I think the Prime Minister commented that his strategy really began the minute he became Prime Minister and started doing trade missions around the world, encouraging the premiers to all do trade missions. Collectively, we've done over 100. There's now 20 new trade agreements signed that cover a market of 3 billion people, and that gives us options of other places to sell our product. As you see with the major projects announcements, we're looking at becoming a superpower and exporting not only LNG, but also oil, as well as some of the other work that's being done on electrifying our grid, because electricity powers everything. And so I think what you're seeing is that going into a position of strength with all of the things that we have, our energy, our critical minerals, our food, that gives us an opportunity to say to the U.S., you're our closest friend and trading partner. We've got a great deal. It benefits both of us. Now it's time to sign it. And so I think you'll see some intensity over the next 27 days as we get to the countdown on the new tariffs coming into effect.
Right, and Canada is now facing that latest threat. The Prime Minister did say that if those tariffs did come to pass, everything is on the table. Did the Prime Minister ask you, as Alberta's Premier, to prepare if Canada ultimately does decide to retaliate somehow?
Well, I already offered. I said, I think I know what the Americans want. They want us to sell them substantially more energy. And so if you need to make a promise of selling 3 million more barrels a day to the United States, I'm in, and we'll do whatever it takes to be able to make that happen. That, to me, is, I think, the positive way of approaching it, is that we know that we have products that the Americans want, whether it's our oil and gas, uranium, critical minerals, or other products. And I think going in and saying, hey, let's do something big and bold together so that we can not only have energy security, but energy dominance. I think that energy is going to play a big part of that conversation, and I hope that's where the conversation goes. But I don't think you go into a constructive negotiation promising to punch someone in the nose. So I know everybody is all excited to hear what the retaliation measures are. That's just not on the table at the moment. I think we're all hoping to get a deal, and that's what we're looking for with a countdown over the next 27 days. We're hoping that the Prime Minister is able to negotiate that.
Well, let's talk some more about that, because again, you've said now is not the time to double down, or rather now is the time to double down on talks, not retaliation. But we know Ontario Doug Premier sees it differently. He says Canada can't just keep rolling over, that we should, quote, hit them back with everything we have. Why do you think he's wrong on that point?
Well, I can tell you why he would be wrong on things like energy, for instance. You should never put things on the table you're not prepared to do. And I've made this case before. Line 5 is one of the disputed pipelines. It goes through Michigan. The Michigan governor has been trying to shut it down for decades, and it would be devastating to Ontario and Quebec if they ever did that, because it would then mean shortages of aviation fuel, of diesel, of gasoline. So we're actually in a weaker position to even begin talking about threatening something like that. So I'm going to make sure that Canada doesn't do anything dumb to result in that kind of counter-retaliation, and you should never go to the table with things that you're not prepared to do. So I think what we go to the table with are the things that we are prepared to do. We are prepared to sell them more energy. We're prepared to sell them more natural gas. We're prepared to sell them critical minerals and make sure that we continue to sell them the food products that they need so that they can do processing and keep their prices low for their consumers, keep housing prices low if we can get a softwood lumber deal. That's how I framed it, is let's talk about how this trade relationship benefits Americans, American citizens, and then also our own consumers and our own producers.
So just to be clear on this, both the premiers of Ontario and New Brunswick, they have left the door open to using their energy exports as leverage. Is there any scenario in which you would be prepared to restrict Alberta's energy exports to strengthen Canada's hand in those talks?
Nope. That's just not on. It doesn't make sense to do that. We saw what happened the last time electricity was threatened. The Americans responded by doubling the tariffs, and by the afternoon, everybody had backed down. You just don't play around with things as crucial to the economy as energy, in my opinion. And I don't think that we should threaten things that we're not prepared to do. So I should be pretty clear about that. It's not what we're interested in Alberta. We're actually interested in strengthening our trading partnership with the United States, selling more energy in all directions, and that's what we've been working towards for the last number of years.
You also pointed out yesterday that so far your province has been largely sheltered, right, from American tariffs. 97% of Alberta's goods currently cross the border tariff-free, and even with this new round of tariffs that would come into force on August 19th, I believe you said that would only affect about 1% of your total product. So, of course, I understand you'd rather see constructive talks proceed, but if talks do fall apart and push does again come to shove, are you willing to somehow see Alberta bear more of the pain that Canada has felt so far, if that's what's needed for a united Canadian response?
Well, I think we do have to look at the fact that we have an agreement that allows for us in Alberta to have 97% of our goods cross tariff-free, and the rest of the country, I think it's 80%. And that's where we want to build on. We certainly don't want to see any of that erode, and we want to start working on each of the sectoral problems in order to get that number higher and higher. But I would just put it to you that the kind of approach that we have taken, where we have had advocates in the United States, refineries, as well as those who process into fuel, they have been our strongest champions in saying, don't tariff energy, keep energy flowing. And I would have used that as an example to all of my fellow premiers. Find your advocates, find your champions in the United States. Get those who are receiving our wood to talk about how it's going to be able to reduce cost of homes. Talk to those who are bringing cattle across the border and how it's able to reduce meat prices at the grocery store. That's the way that I think we win, is that we win the hearts and minds of the consumers in the United States, their elected representatives, and then we're able to change public opinion. And I think it's working. A recent poll I saw said that of all of the policies that Donald Trump has, the one that's the least popular is tariffs on Canada. And so I think that that kind of work in winning the hearts and minds of Americans and American business people so that they can be our advocates, I think that has proven to us to be the better strategy, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
So Mexico is starting its third round of formal talks with the Americans. Canada has not had one so far yet. There are outstanding issues on autos, on steel, aluminum, softwood, dairy, and now this latest round of tariffs. The U.S. Trade Representative says talks could drag on into next year, and yet yesterday you said you're still optimistic that a comprehensive deal can be reached before the August 19th deadline, if I understood you correctly. Why? What are you seeing that makes you think that that's still possible?
Well, I guess what I'm hearing the Prime Minister say is that there's going to be an intensification of the negotiations, that these irritants have been dragging on for some time, but we had come close to an agreement back in October of last year, and it was based on some pretty big ideas about having a security around energy and uranium and critical minerals and other products. And so if that's where we were as recently as October, let's get back there, and then let's work through sector by sector to solve some of the other problems. So that's what I'm hoping that we're going to see over the next 27 days, and I guess we'll know whether or not the Prime Minister's been successful in that strategy. But I think that what we're hearing is that at all levels there has been an increase in urgency, and I hope that results in a comprehensive deal for everybody so that we can start talking about ways that we can continue to expand trade, because that's been successful for us and it's been successful for the Americans too.
We're also counting down to another important date, October 19th. That's when Albertans will vote on whether to move the province towards a binding referendum on separation. The Leave side is out campaigning every day. You said in May that you would do everything you can to convince Albertans to stay in Canada. Everything you can. So beyond town halls this summer, will Albertans see a pro-unity campaign from you and your party with everything we would expect from a campaign? Advertising, canvassing, rallies, get out the vote efforts. Will they see that? And if not, why not?
Well, I can tell you, I travel the province every summer. I'm going to continue doing the same. We have town halls and we do various public events. I continue to do as much media is interested in talking with me. We have a website where we're getting the message out. We do have advertising campaigns around the 9 questions that I do want to have a strong mandate for, that will be on the ballot on October the 19th. And I make the case every single day about how Canada can work, and we're demonstrating with things like the MOU that I signed with the Prime Minister, with some of the big announcements that we've had around pipelines, not only to the West Coast, but also a pipeline called the Northern Shield to Ontario, the new data center development, the natural gas development that's going to happen along with that. That's a measure that the private sector are taking notice that things have changed in the last 18 months. And so we're going to work through each of the problems one by one and hope to solve a few more of them. But that's my job, is to convince Albertans, those who have given up on Canada, that it's worth fighting for. And so I'm demonstrating with my actions that I believe things can get so much better.
And I'll just close on this. Are you at all concerned, or how concerned are you that simply holding this referendum might strengthen the separatist movement and leave your province and ultimately Canada more vulnerable and divided?
Look, we had 400,000 people sign a petition saying they wanted to vote to remain, and 300,000 signed a petition saying they wanted to vote to leave. That's 25% of our adult voting public in Alberta. You can't ignore that and expect it to go away. You have to allow people to have their say, to be heard, and that's what I'm hoping to get from Albertans in the fall, is some direction on how they feel about the strategy that we've taken and the progress that we've made in undoing the policies that made them feel that way. The policies that made people lose hope in Canada were real. It was the NDP pushing an extreme radical agenda that continues to be pushed by the current leader, Avi Lewis. He wants to keep all fossil fuels in the ground, and that kind of obstruction is what created the loss of hope. I think that the approach that I'm taking with the Prime Minister and the other fellow premiers has demonstrated that we've seen a reversal of a lot of that. And so we just have to keep on demonstrating that this is not a temporary change, it's a permanent one. And I think we'll be able to convince more Albertans to give it a chance.
Okay, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, you've been very generous with your time. We'll need to leave it there. Thanks very much.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.